Welcome to our Engage to Excel Group webinar celebrating our employees during the COVID-19 crisis. I am Tamika Figaro, the moderator for today, and I'm also joined by Roy Sanderson, who I'll introduce in just 1 second. First, I just want to make sure everyone is safe and healthy. We know how challenging it has been for many organizations during this difficult time. And our goal today is to have an insightful conversation with Roy and answer all your questions. So for those who don't know him, Roy is in the employee recognition field and he has been working there for 24 years. He's the author of Practicing Recognition, How to Give Meaningful Recognition to People Every Day, and he's also the company's chief learning officer. Roy is very passionate about giving employee recognition, and he loves being able to teach people how to give real recognition the right way. So Roy, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Tamika. It's good to be here.
It's great to have you. Before we start, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items. We encourage everyone to ask questions, and to do so, you can use the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen. Since there's no microphone, you will be muted. We encourage you to ask your questions with the function. We'll do our best to respond to everyone, but if we don't have time to do so, we'll reach out to you personally and we'll respond to you. Finally, this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available to rewatch on the Engage to Excel and Redo Vimeo page within about 3 business days. So that's it. We'll get started with the webinar. Roy, I'm going to start with a question that has been posed several times by our clients. How have things changed with celebrating employees during the pandemic with more and more work from home situations?
Okay, good. I think the biggest issue, Tamika, is the fact that when people are out of sight, as we are now from one another, no more water coolers or meeting in the hallways, we're out of sight, we're out of mind, and I think that's what happens, we get out of recognition. And I was impressed with a recent survey, research that was done by Slack, the business communication and collaboration app. And they found that with remote workers, that the knowledge workers especially are more satisfied than they were before the pandemic and before the crisis. The work-life balance is actually a little bit better. They've got accustomed to things now. They're managing the work-related stresses and anxieties that we all fell into when this all began. But what was interesting for me was that the sense of belonging, that connection, fell into the negative. It actually declined. And I think it's that connectivity that we're missing. And without that connection, we're losing the opportunities to recognize one another. So I think we need to build greater visibility. We need to create that connectivity if we don't have it already. And we need to build recognition giving into our daily practices and routines that we now are falling into.
Yes, definitely. Like you said, in the pandemic, we're more disconnected than before, and we don't necessarily have time to connect with the people we work with. So for a leader or a manager, what are the things they can do to prepare for a celebration that will help enhance the employee's experience?
Okay. Yeah, I think leaders and managers, of course, don't always realize how much they represent the organization. Recognition, unfortunately, has often been owned by HR. And so leaders, managers might tend to think that recognition is just an HR function. It's nothing to do with them. But leaders need to represent the organization. In fact, one of the complaints I often hear, say service recognition, long length of service recognition, is the fact that an individual may have chosen the gift or the award that they have selected ahead of time. They may even have received it close to or on their anniversary, but then they didn't hear anything from their manager. Nothing. Crickets. And they even wait till the next day hoping they're still going to hear something from their manager, and still they don't hear anything. So leaders, I think, need to become masters of their time, better masters of their time. They need to kind of, especially with our video conferencing technology that we're now immersed in now, we need to become masters of how to make this an effective tool to connect and to routinely give the kind of recognition that people are expecting, and especially with things like length of service awards. That needs to be a very personal connection with their manager and the employee. So I hope that can really rise up and become more of a way of life and not just a program.
Mm. That's true. We have so much technology available these days that it becomes easier to plan any kind of event. What are some additional steps someone could make to make an award presentation even more special in the work from home environment?
All right. So I think it's good to remember how it used to be in order to kind of get the stage setting of what we need to do. If we look back, we need to remember that we were immersed into a full sensory experience when we had our awards events. And one of the things we can do is try to replicate those kind of sensory experiences that we're so used to with an in-person event. So imagine the senses that were triggered at an awards event that you can last recall, say sometime last year, for example. And if we look at the sights, the sense of sight, we would probably see banners posted up above the stage, for example. There were lights, there were all kinds of visuals, balloons, for goodness sakes, right? With the congratulations and things like this. So now we need to replicate that. How can we put sights, the sense of sight, into our virtual experiences with perhaps either, carry a banner or have a Zoom background if we're using Zoom or whatever platform we're using. I think we need to all be engaged. Maybe we dress up. I think I've shared with you before, Tamika, how when I visited the Zappos store or the office out in Las Vegas, they are a company that does online sales of shoes and other products. But they have one of their values to be fun. And what they do when somebody has an anniversary is, for example, each employee has a vanity license plate with just their name on it above their desk, above wherever their workstation is. And the individuals, their colleagues, are assigned to kind of dress up, and they create a band, and they go marching down the hallway or in between the cubicles, and they come with their music and fanfare, and they give the sticker for the year. And it's done every year, not just on milestones. And every year they get a new sticker, like a new license plate registration, to put on their name license. And so this is just some of the things they do. So how can we do that in a virtual way? So sound wise, we can have music playing. There's lots of sound effects now that you can get online. We could have the clapping of hands sound at different moments within a virtual presentation. Maybe have everyone purchase a noisemaker, for goodness sake. We got to get a little bit more exciting and fun. This is not to be boring. What other things can we imagine when we actually have a real event? Well, I don't know about you, but there's always refreshments. So we can look at tastes, right? We can look at smells. So let's have the favorite food item delivered for the individual. Let's orchestrate that with maybe a colleague who lives close by, maybe with a local bakery or whatever. But somehow we've got to bring that all in. So I think we need to look at what happens before an event, what happens during an event, what happens after an event, and build upon that, as well as looking at the full sensory experience. It takes a little bit of time. It takes a little bit of planning, But I think the more time and effort we put into it, I think the dividends that are gained from it are just enormous. I think it really will show that we care about the individual if we recognize them with a full multi-sensory experience, even virtually.
I agree. You've given some great tips, very fun tips for how to recognize someone and to celebrate them in a big way, even if it's online. What would you say? What tips would you give to someone who wants to recognize or even celebrate someone for a day-to-day task that they've done?
Yeah. I think you're right. It's not just about milestone celebrations. There are the work achievements that go on, projects that have been completed. And I think first off, when you hear about it, and I love the public service announcement at American airports where the TSA comes out with their see something, say something. And of course, they're referring to the security issue, but I love it from a recognition point of view that when you see something or hear about something, say something. So initially, respond right away. And then if we have to celebrate with colleagues and peers, maybe we do plan something a little later on, not too far away from what you heard. But number one, stop and celebrate right away individually. And then if there is a need, get the group together. I think we need to acknowledge contributions. People have invested a lot of time and effort in some of these work projects that are going on, often trying to address the whole pandemic issues and its impact on the workplace and dealing with our colleagues virtually. So we need to kind of tell the story, capture the story. I love doing a lot of writing and I read a lot. And in a lot of the fiction framework of storytelling, they talk about the hero's journey. And each hero goes on a journey and tries to conquer whatever challenge. And I think we can tell the same kind of story around what our employees are doing. We need to tell other people, tell everyone what went into the activities, the tasks that went into things. It's very much letting other people know and making it visible. So review the project, and maybe from a learning point of view, that reviewing the project can actually be a presentation, maybe a lunch and learn where we share what we did. I love movies where there's the behind the scenes stories as well, where you get the kind of videos of showing what went into the movie. And I think we need to share that, capture that, and let other people see what went in. That's a way of celebrating and acknowledging what people are doing. I also think it's important to recognize the challenges we're going through right now. It's not easy for everyone. And I knew I was hearing just recently about some issues that one of our colleagues in IT was going through. Like everything else, when everything goes virtual, everything puts a demand on our IT departments. And so I was hearing of the kind of problems that were being identified, submitted, tickets submitted, all those requests coming in. And this one colleague, I thought, wow, what on earth is she going through? So I sent an email and I just said, listen, I'm hearing all the crazy requests you're getting from all of us. And I know it must be a crazy time for you right now. I just want you to know, I know I can't alleviate any pressure, but just want to let you know that I was thinking of you. And I heard it and I sent that email out and I got an immediate response. And she said, wow, thanks a lot. Yeah, it has been kind of crazy, but your email just made my day. And I thought, wow, it didn't take much to make someone who I don't even see that often, other than just emails, and I made her day. So how many other colleagues do we have who if we just stop, and I want you to know, Tamika, that I let it go a day before I sent that email. I mean, I knew it the one day and I didn't do anything. And then the next day I thought, you know what? I'm here, I'm seeing her name in my mind and I've got to do something right now. So whatever I'm working on, stop, send that email off. And it made her day. So we need to do those kinds of things.
I agree that this was a very example of how you can make a difference in someone's day just by a thoughtful email.
Yeah.
Um, Especially in this climate, would you say there's a value with online recognition programs to help implement the culture of recognition in companies?
Yes, I think our online recognition programs that we have are certainly great tools for creating greater visibility of what other people are doing. I know I go onto our platform and I see things that are going on. And one of the things, obviously we have like a Facebook, we have a like feature, but I think it's also important to not just like, to also add a comment, to add to the message, to make it more aware, more visible. And I think we need to do those kinds of things. Um, there's a lot of ways we can send those e-cards out, and I know we've done this for some of our clients where we've actually customized some new e-cards to go along with this whole crisis and situation that need to be a little bit more message specific rather than perhaps living the values. But when we do know and hear and see or observe positive things that are going on, go on to your recognition programs, find the employee, and send something out right away. There's a lot of people helping one another right now, and we need to send that out using the platforms so that we create that visibility of the positive things that are going on, because there's a lot that people are doing right now, especially when they're working from home.
Absolutely. I think you're right. Would you have any other tips you want to share with us? Anything that you have on top of your mind?
Yeah. I just I got this quote from a leadership consultant and author I know called, his name is Kevin Eikenberry, and he said, "Done well, celebrations can shape your company culture, increasing job satisfaction and long-term retention of team members. Celebrating success is more than just good or nice idea, or even the right thing to do. It can provide meaning, create teamwork, and help achieve even greater success." And I like that, because I think as we use our programs to highlight the great things that are going on, we're going to be able to build that attitude of gratitude and show that we care. And then people will just innately do more positive and good things because they know that they're going to be valued for their contributions and recognized for what they do.
Hmm. During the past months, we've seen a very big shift around the world, but also within companies. How would you say you see the future of celebrating employees after the whole pandemic that we're in?
Wow. As I look to the future, and I think we're all aware, Tamika, that this pandemic doesn't seem to be disappearing too quickly. And I think we need to be ready for kind of a renaissance around recognition giving, and especially around celebrating our employees. I hope people and programs will adapt to this new way of giving recognition. I think we need to build more video kind of connections in even on our programs, for example. And I hope, as I've shared earlier today, that I hope our recognition and our celebrations will become more multi-sensory, that we'll take that little extra bit of care and time and say, what's special to Tamika, right? What's special to you? And what could I do to make that a more meaningful experience for you? We need to experience recognition even virtually, not just on the one-on-ones. So honoring people and celebrating their successes is something we must focus on every day and not just wait for the calendared events that we were used to doing. I think celebrating needs to be done more regularly. It's more on a one-on-one, more on a departmental basis, not just the organization-wide celebration of events. If we can build that in, I think we will have a very successful future in keeping our employees happy, keeping them feeling valued, and hopefully seeing them, obviously stay with the organization.
I think you're right. I think organizations like us, for example, will have to start looking at different ways we can use technology to recognize people. And after the whole pandemic, we're going to have to find new ways to do things. And yeah, so it was a very interesting topic, Roy. Thank you so much for bringing this here. I hope we answered questions that people had during this time. It can be confusing. I don't have any more questions. I think that was it for me, but I'm going to look if we had questions from the audience. Just give me a second. Okay, we have one question. So the question is, what are some of your favorite ways to recognize employees?
Oh, favorite ways. I think one of my favorite ways, and you've probably heard me speak about this before, is to use the two-part specificity rule, where you identify, instead of just saying good job and well done, which is a tried and true expressions that people use all the time, and it doesn't mean anything. The irony is the word good is a neutral word. It isn't amazing. It's just good. It just sits back in the middle there between exciting and positive words and negative words. It doesn't mean much. And job, what is a job? Well, that's what we signed up to do when we got hired, right? So we're not specific enough. So the first part of being specific is to tell people specifically what it was they did, the action that they did. The second part is the fact that we need to be specific about the impact that their action made. So when we tell people the difference that their action made, people go, wow, I didn't even realize that. I'm sure many people are being more specific with the recognition they give from the point of view of identifying the behavior or the action that was done. But very few people make time to add that specificity around the impact that employee's actions actually had on maybe a customer, on a peer, or on the manager themselves.
Thank you, Roy, for your answer. I looked and it's the only question we have for today, so I guess we need a
actually, I am seeing, I don't know if you're seeing it, but I'm seeing this other one here.
Is there another one? Oh, we got one. Okay, perfect. How do you balance recognition for the employee who is more introverted and private versus those that are more extroverted? And this is a very good question.
Yes, not everyone is outgoing, and the introvert extrovert, I think, can still get solved through the whole concept of giving recognition the right way, being more meaningful with recognition. And I don't think we have to worry so much in the actual delivery to one person, especially in our time now, where we are not as connected with other people. In general, in a very stereotypic way, 25% of employees do not want public recognition, for example. That means that if we are going to be using an online recognition program, that we wouldn't make it public. We can turn off the public display features of recognition and allow it just to be to that individual. I think that's going to be important when we're using our tools. I think it's also going to be mindful that perhaps when we're having a virtual staff meeting, how do we acknowledge great things that are going on? I think we need to find out from the more quieter, introverted employees, are they open in a staff meeting for you to recognize them in that more public forum? Or is it when it was just a larger organization? Things have changed now. Things have changed for people by having virtual meetings, that they may want that connection that they might not have wanted with using public recognition, say in a large group meeting. So we need to find out some of the differences. So sit down one-on-one with your staff, find out how they like to be recognized, respect those that do not want public recognition, and find out if the new environment of being recognized in a virtual way is the same as it would be in person. Some of us get more embarrassed in person, literally physical contact, than we would be on a virtual, video conferencing tool. So there are now new differences that we need to find out about.
Thank you. So we have two more questions. What is your perspective on online recognition systems?
Yeah, I think online recognition systems are a great way to recognize people. I think it's also very important that you look at your recognition practices, where you might have had an opportunity to recognize someone face to face. We don't have that, but look at how the individual's preference is for, written emails, for example, text-based recognition through the programs that we have. Don't forget to connect visually with people. Remember, I started off our webinar quoting the research from Slack, and they found that people don't have a sense of belonging. And some of that belonging comes through the video conferencing tools that we now have to be able to see one another face to face. And maybe that is bringing in our colleagues together once in a while. And I think we need to have some fun on our video conferencing. I heard of some examples from a friend of mine, Chris Littlefield, from Beyond Thank You. And he said, why not have it where you turn off the camera and now you ask a question? How many of you are going to dress up this Halloween? And now you have a kind of a poll where you turn on the cameras of who's going to be dressing up. Or maybe you have who has a birthday this month, just anything to make it a little bit more interactive with the camera feature that some of us are sick and tired of video conferencing. So let's bring in a few more fun ways to use the video conferencing tools.
Yes, I have heard that a lot of people are tired of Zoom meetings. I personally like having face-to-face meetings. I get to see people that I don't see every day, especially working from home. But you're right, these are very good other tips that we could use. So we have a question from Kathleen. She says, does Roy have an idea for managers to better see or hear what their employees are doing now that many are remote?
Right. We need to dialogue in some shape or form to find out what people are working on. I don't know about you, Tamika, but I find that my job has changed significantly. If I looked at the role description from when I was hired, my goodness, has the world changed and has my job changed? So I think we need to find out what people are working on. I had a call with the person I report to this morning and just sharing some of the new things I'm doing. That's completely out of the role description that was written up. So if we don't know what people are working on, how can we recognize them for what they're doing? So have that opportunity to dialogue. The one-on-one meetings are very, very important. Whatever format that is, phone, video conference, even just sending in updates on projects you're working on, we need to have that exchange. And I think those one-on-ones need to be two-way, not just the employee reporting up, but we need to hear what our managers are working on, because we might have some ideas ourselves where we can assist our manager. And again, add to that experience of making a difference and making work much more meaningful.
So we have another question. I think it's the last question. What are your thoughts on having an employee of the month?
Yeah, Employee of the Month has some mixed reviews. I think it was started off with good intentions, but unfortunately, what happens if you have a small group of employees is that when it's the next month, you're going, oh, cute. So I did Tamika, I did Melissa, I did John. So I guess we better do so-and-so this month. And that can be a negative where we're just picking someone. I think it's better to have more of the daily recognition going on. We should be seeing something in an employee on a weekly basis that we can acknowledge. Even if it's just acknowledging what they're doing. If we never say anything to someone, I think that's a problem. We need to thank one another for what we're doing, and we need to acknowledge the difference that they're making. So I'm not a big fan of Employee of the Month because of that problem where you're trying to just select the next person rather than the person who's going above and beyond. I think if we're engaged with our employees enough, if we're interacting, if we're making connections on a regular basis, we're going to hear all the things we need to hear that merit recognition.
Yeah, I think you're right. Well, thank you, Roy. I don't think we have any more questions. We've gone through all of them. Thank you for answering all our questions and for joining us today. For everyone who is watching, thank you for joining us. As I mentioned at the beginning of the conversation, this webinar is recorded, so we will provide you a link via email after we have it online. It will also be on the Rideau.com and Engage to Excel page, and we'll add it on our Vimeo page as well, so it will be accessible to you. I think that's our time for today. Thank you for joining us again, Roy. We're gonna end it here and have a very good afternoon.
Thank you very much, Tamika. It's good to join you.
Good to have you here.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.